Hey there, Mark O'Donnell here. In this video, I'm going to talk about the final two stages of decline. Stage 4, which is grasping for salvation, and stage 5, which is capitulation to irrelevance or death. And of course, I'm talking about the 5 stages of decline that Jim Collin writes about in his absolute masterful work, How the Mighty Fall. And as companies grow, they start being just super successful. They are creating returns for stakeholders. They're making customers extraordinarily happy. Everyone wants to work there. What happens is at some point in time, they start to decline. And why do these great companies fail? And so what Jim Collin does is he takes us through 5 stages of decline. So number 1 was in the previous video, which was hubris born of success. Stage 2 was undisciplined pursuit of more. Stage 3, denial of risk and peril. And so now that takes us to stage 4, grasping for salvation. And so what I'm going to do is take us through the markers of stage 4. Now, you can come back from stage 4. It's just a little bit unlikely. And so it gets harder and harder as you go through these stages and as you ignore the markers. You need to recognize them as fast as you possibly can, come together with your leadership team and do what you can to avoid them and make it a process to avoid them. It'll create a much more resilient organization. And if you keep coming back to the assessments that I'm sharing in the comments below, it'll just get you thinking. It'll allow you to create a good issues list in your business so that you're avoiding these markers. All right, so stage 4, grasping for salvation. So companies in this stage, some of the markers. Number 1, a series of silver bullets. There's a tendency to make dramatic, big moves, such as a game-changing acquisition or a discontinuous leap into a new strategy or an exciting innovation in an attempt to quickly catalyze a breakthrough and then do it again and again, lurching about from program to program, goal to goal, strategy to strategy, in a pattern of chronic inconsistency. So that's what Collins talks about in that particular marker of a series of silver bullets. He also says in another book that mediocrity stems from chronic inconsistency. And so that's what all this is about. Can you be great? Can you be consistently great? And so that's where decline kind of comes from. All right, so the next one is grasping for a leader as a savior. So the board or the company, they respond to threats and setbacks by searching for a charismatic leader and or outside savior. And so he also talks about clock builders versus time tellers. So what they move, a clock builder is someone who builds a system of success, and they're focusing in on the process that can extend beyond themselves. A time teller is the person who comes in, they become a savior. And so grasping for a leader as a savior is one of those markers. Panic and haste. So instead of being calm, deliberate, and disciplined, people exhibit hasty, reactive behavior bordering on panic. So they're running around with their hair on fire, trying to figure out what to do instead of focusing in on what they can be great at and executing on it consistently. So next is radical change and revolution with fanfare. So the language of revolution and radical change characterizes a new era of the business. New programs, new cultures, new strategies. Leaders engage in hoopla, spending a lot of energy to align and motivate people, engaging in buzzwords and taglines. So it's just all fluff. So one of the great quotes I like is big hat, no cattle. So they come in, they are putting all this sizzle into it, but there's really nothing underneath. And so that's one of the markers of stage 4 of decline. All right, so a couple more here. Hype, precedes results. And I've done this. I hate doing it. It's selling air. So instead of setting expectations low, underscoring the duration and difficulty of the turnaround, leaders hype their visions. They sell the future to compensate for the lack of current results, initiating a pattern of over-promising and under-delivering. It's got to be baked into what it is that you do, that you consistently under-promise, over-deliver. You got to bake that in, otherwise you're at risk of decline. So last couple here, initial upswing followed by disappointments. So there is an initial burst of positive results, but they do not last. They're dashed by hope, and it follows the dashed hope follows the hop. Right? It goes up and then just goes right back down. So the organization achieves no buildup and no cumulative momentum because it is all about consistent, methodical execution. And so this is just up, down, up, down. It's all over the place. Okay. Next is confusion and cynicism. So what Collins writes here is that people cannot easily articulate what the organization stands for. Their core values have eroded to the point of irrelevance. The organization has become just another place to work for their people, a place to get a paycheck. People lose faith in their ability to triumph and prevail. So instead of passionately believing in the organization's core values and their purpose, people become distrustful, regarding visions and values as little more than PR and rhetoric. This is just hallucination from the top. Really, values mean nothing. They're not executed within the organization. And then finally in stage 4, and we're going to move on to stage 5 in a minute here, is that chronic restructuring and erosion of financial strength. Each failed initiative drains resources, it drains cash flow, and financial liquidity begins to decline. The organization undergoes multiple restructurings, both from a people perspective, the structure of the organization, to the financial structure. Options narrow as you go, and strategic decisions are increasingly dictated by circumstance. And so that's stage 4. And so I encourage you to take the assessment, the little Google form. If you put your email address in, you'll get your results back. But primarily what that is to do is really just for you to take a self-assessment, see what markers you may be showing in your company, and then what are you going to do about it? Put it on your issues list with your leadership team to go solve. All right, so that's stage 4. Then going on to stage 5, which is the final stage. There's no real markers here other than you stay in stage 4 so long that people just get completely tired. Leaders get disaffected. They leave the organization. Nobody wants to work for that company. You start to lose customers because you just have this constant selling of air and never delivering on your promises. You might be good for a couple days, but then it falls apart. And so eventually that just takes you into stage 5. And so that is capitulation to irrelevance. Like you're still, there's a heartbeat there, but you're really, you don't serve anyone particularly well. You're very mediocre, and or you're bankrupt because you've taken all these big bets. You've hiring these charismatic leaders and you've invested in these new initiatives with no proof, no data. And so you're done. Okay. So that's it for me. And that is the 5 stages of decline from Jim Collin's book, How the Mighty Fall. So I encourage you to read the book. It's a fantastic book. Take the assessment, go through the markers of decline. And when you do that, have just a legal pad next to you, something to smoke out all the issues, all the mindsets that you may have as an organization, things you're doing or trying that are one of those markers of decline, and figure out with your team how to avoid them. All right, that's it for now. See ya.